Well, we said it once, said it twice. Are you green or growing, or are you ripe and rotten?
There's a saying I love: don't look where you fell, look where you slipped. When we come across an obstacle or challenge, many of us address the results. Today's guest knows if you want to affect real change, you have to address what might be causing the challenge in the first place. Dr. Todd is focused on finding a solution. If you keep getting the same answer, you have to be willing to ask different questions. Every time I go in, I can count on walking out with a new thought or a new way to look at something. He's the epitome of someone with a growth mindset. He is constantly learning new things and sharing them. He says he has a hard time staying inside the box. Well, sometimes you just got to blow up the box in order to find a new answer. Please welcome today's guest, Dr. Todd Plutchok. Hey, Dr. Todd. So great to
How's
see
it going,
you.
Claire?
Thank you for jumping on with me today. I'm so excited to have this conversation. I feel like this is what we do every time I come in to see you anyway, so it'll be great. All right, so I just thought, I was thinking through how we met, and I still can't exactly figure out. I think it's been like maybe 6 or 7 years at this point, but
Yeah, time flies when we're having
I
fun.
know it, right? I was going to Orange Theory a lot. I was obsessed with it, especially at the very beginning, to the point where I was going like twice a day.
Yeah,
And my poor knee was already, I mean, it had been like 15 years that I shouldn't have been doing anything with impact, or I was told that. And so Coach Jolin kept saying, you need to go see Dr. Todd, and you need to go see Dr. Todd. And I said, oh, I mean, what is one more doctor going to say to me that I haven't already seen? And so I ignored him. And he then showed me how to row instead. So for, I think, a year, I didn't run and I just rowed, which I got really good at rowing, which was amazing. But when I
right.
started complaining again, he finally said, all right, open your phone. I went, what for? He was, just open it. Go to this website. I said, all right, I'll do it later. He goes, no, 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 you're going to do it right now. Book this appointment. So he made me do it while I was standing right in front of him to book an appointment with you to come and see you. And he was, just trust me, just go see him. And so I am so glad that I did. And I don't know, I've sent so many other people to you. And it literally is the people that say, there's nothing else I can do. That, to me, that is who you are. When I think there's no way that this is ever going to change, somehow sending someone to you all of a sudden means there is hope and there's something new that we can try. So thank you. I clearly have been running for the last few years. I don't know. I'm sure there's still some running in me, taking a break right now.
Yep.
But there's a quote, I think it was Tony Robbins. He said, when did you decide to allow your limitation? When did you decide to accept that limitation? And
Right.
so that's what I always think of when I think of you, because when I think of, there's no way, I just am always thinking about you. So
Well,
thank
thank
you
you
for
so
being
much.
that
And
trigger.
yeah, thank you, Jolin, for introducing me to Clara. If you ever listen to this, but I get most of my referrals from coaches and other people. So my business is 99% referrals. And the thing is, as you kind of said, everyone sets the bar higher for me. So
Yep.
like this guy fixes it all. I'm like, okay, so I'm already coming in with a handicap in terms of expectations in my office, but I love it. So, and
Yep.
that's the former athlete in me. I love the
It's a
challenge.
challenge.
And kind of like what Tony Robbins said, one of the things I tell people is the diagnosis or injury, it's a pattern, but it's kind of like a stray animal. If
Yep.
you don't name it if you don't want to keep it, right? So so your limitation, if you call it an itis or an algia, whatever you want to be, then you're more likely to identify, and that's to be part of you. So if we can call it a pattern of dysfunction, and then really give people that idea that that the words are very, very important, and that's something that listening to you in your world, like words and the way we think out loud and think inside, become very important with medicine, the way you view your body.
Yeah.
The sticks and stones are way easier to treat than the words, right? So as you get an athlete and work with elite athletes, words are way tougher for people saying you have a bad back or a bad knee. So
Right.
the semantics plays such a huge role in the way we
Yeah.
view our body.
Well, and I think if you go through, science is not, I have no authority to say this, but science is really not fact. It's just based on what has been tried, theories that have been gone through to this point, right? So,
Yeah, it's our best tool we have to get close to fact.
yeah.
But remember, they're all medical opinions, including
Yes.
mine, right? So there's authorities, people who have experience, and people who have the research. But again, at the end of the day, they're medical opinions, and I love science because it's the closest thing we can get to pinning facts and truth down. So,
Yeah.
but I always say, and especially the last 4 years, science says dot 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 today, but tomorrow or
today.
in 5 minutes it could say something different. So it's not a pedestal to speak from. It's not a soapbox. It's a tool, and so
Right.
and I love it. I'm very grateful for it because it's a lot of smart people have helped us help more people. So
Yeah. Well, and whenever someone asks what kind of doctor you are, I struggle to even remember the word chiropractor because that's not at all what I think of as a chiropractor. So you describe yourself as
a manual therapist and movement therapist, and
yeah,
chiropractors have done a great job typecasting themselves as back and neck crackers, right?
yeah,
And so I'm grateful and proud to be a chiropractor because it's kind of opened my scope of practice. Like it allows me to explore and have autonomy to treat in a lot of different fashions, the same manual therapist and movement therapist. So
yeah,
I'm not limited. So I'm really grateful for the title. However, my curiosity keeps pushing me into other boundaries beyond chiropractic. So obviously within my scope, but movement and manual therapist is something I work on. And then obviously the verbiage, what we were just talking about, so important as I gotten later into practice.
yes,
So there's people who know how to fix a car and there's people who know how to drive the car, but there's not, uh, there's a gap of knowledge between the two. And so I like to marry those two. And it really helps like somebody with like running. Okay, we can look at what's going on their knee, but what do you do while you're running? And so really trying to marry those two, and that really helps get results and
yeah.
understand from a space of empathy, like what you're working with.
Yeah. And I think one of my favorite things about you is your goal is not to get a patient in there as many times as possible. I love that every time I come in, you're teaching me something new and that you want me to walk away to be able to fix myself when necessary.
That's my driving force. I love empowering people.
Yeah.
From as a kid, I love empowering people, and that's something that gets me jazzed up going to work when I see people have tools. I've done courses and workshops, social media. I tried this and it worked great, and I mean that for me, that's a home run. That's a double
Yeah.
high five. So I think if we can understand our body's a Sudoku puzzle, and it's an ever changing Sudoku puzzle, but
Yeah.
we get this lifetime to try to solve these Sudoku puzzles. So helping people like where they're stuck, just move this over here, move that there, and helping them understand so they
Yeah.
continue to play the game. That's the whole idea behind it. So
Yeah. Well, but you also have an abundance mindset. So I think some people would think I need to make sure that I have value, like that I have to keep bringing them in. And so I think that is a scarcity mindset to believe that is the case.
yeah, that was promoted a lot when I was getting out of
Mm,
practice with some of the consultants, and they're
yeah.
still abundant, and there's still a very common business practice out there. And I always
Yeah.
joke around my clients as I like to be a better doctor than a businessman. It's I
Mm,
had a business background, so I know about business,
yeah.
but I got out of that to get into healthcare and empowering my clients. So
Yeah.
there's much better ways to make a lot of money. Not that making money is a bad thing, but there's better ways to do it than the type of work I do. And
Mhm.
but I found so much rewarding components of what I do, and so it keeps me coming back. It's there's a quote, and I'm going to butcher it, about Alan Watts in there about
Uh-huh.
if you can be so engrossed in what you do that it feels like play instead of work, right?
Hmm.
So that's where I don't feel like I should get paid sometimes. 'Cause I'm really enjoying problem solving with people and empowering them and walking through that process with them, and it's a blast. So I really enjoy that. So
Yeah.
really being in the moment and it's just all in with that person, and that really helps. The hours fly by, and it's a great experience to watch their eyes light up and see discoveries that they've been walking around all day with.
Yeah, it's fun. I always love coming in. But it also causes me to like to trust that you really are making the right decisions for me because I know that your goal is not money is not the end.
Right.
It's our care and our growth. So where did that come from for you? What does your journey look like? How did you get to this to where you are now?
I guess the family values. You can always tap into that. I come from a long history of healthcare providers.
Uh-huh.
So my grandfather, my mother's side was a doctor, medical doctor.
Hmm.
My grandmother was a nurse. My other grandfather was a pharmacist. My
Wow.
father was a general practitioner, and then my mom was a social worker, and did so and very active in the community. So giving and serving is just kind of something it's been ingrained into me. It's pretty funny because I was not a pre-med major in undergrad, so had a really tough time at my biology and chemistry teachers because one was a first year biology teacher and a last year chemistry teacher was about to retire, one foot out the door.
Okay.
And it was like eating sawdust every day in those classes. They were
Hmm.
so dry and so so dull. And as an 18-year-old, I'm like, I can't do this for 8 years.
Yeah.
No way. And so I had to end up going into business and did all sorts of things from large corporations to startups to business consulting. Was great at what I did, kept getting promoted, not fulfilled. And so finally I had like a young life crisis at age 26, 27,
Yeah.
and like, all right, what drives me, what feels right, what I want to do. And that kind of got back to those family values, which was
Mm.
helping people, empowering people. And I was lucky to find a profession I could use my hands on to
Mm.
truly, put hands on and help people move better, feel better. So yeah, that was definitely a family value. I grew up watching people come up and tell me what a great physician he was. People telling
Mm.
me how my mother helped work them through certain times. So it's really good influence. He was a very humble, or still is. He's still living and still a wealth of information that I consult with, but very humble. He was a lot of fun. I find doctors don't like to say I don't know.
Uh-huh.
And that's something they have spend all this education, all these degrees on the wall, and I'm not going to tell you I don't know because you're here to see me for the answers. And he was humble. He said, I don't know. Let's go find out. And
Yeah.
so that was a gift he gave to me that I'm okay to say I don't know. Let's go find out and continue to seek out different understandings of the body and different understandings of the way that people work and think.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of pressure if you feel like you have to know everything. And I don't know, to be able to say it, to be able to say, I don't know, and then finding the answer, it feels freeing to me to be able to say that.
I agree. I agree, but it is pressure. Sometimes when people are looking at you, and you're their last hope, they've gone through multiple providers. I
Yeah.
remember my first month in practice, and this person came up, just couldn't stand up, couldn't sit down. I was like, "You need to go see a chiropractor." I'm like, "Oh, they're actually in my office." I'm that guy, right? So I was like, "Wow." So that is pressure to go and deliver. But if you're honest and open and set expectations, and then help people understand what's going on in their body and keep them from being a victim of circumstance. So
Yeah.
taking your knowledge, taking what you've understood, and then providing that for them. That is so responsible, and I think is a missing component
Mhm.
of our interaction of again empowering people and let them know, okay, here's what we found. Having a plan B and a plan C. So whether you're in business or whether you're in medical practice, if somebody comes to you and you don't have a solution, best practice is to have a plan B and plan C and be an advocate for that person, and then you have their trust and relationship right there. And
Right.
ultimately it's a relationship. And so setting that foundation of trust and knowing that you have their best interest, not out for your wallet, but out for your success, and that's a big thing.
I always say I don't like when people say that I'm a problem solver. I prefer solution finder.
Yes.
And because I feel like the focus is different if you're looking for a solution versus looking at the problem.
Yeah.
And that to me is that's how I see you, as a solution finder. So when someone is just shows up and you may not know exactly what it is that is the problem, where do you start? Like, how do you start to think through where to start?
Sometimes if I'm running into a wall or I'm stuck, I'll ask them, "What do you think it is?" And I'll
Mm,
throw it right back on them.
uh-huh.
Because you're the PhD on you, right? You know what you experience, you know what's going on, and then I'll shut up, which is really challenging for me at times. And sometimes you'll find out stuff that everyone else has missed. They have an intuition of what, it's ever since I broke up with this, or I had this really bad layoff, or I used to always do this. This reminded me of an injury from 5 years ago, and it just shook me. And that stuff
Yeah.
usually never comes up with my elbow hurts or this and that. When if you really get down to it,
Right.
that's a component. And then I look at systems. There's no system that's not interconnected with other systems. And so the
Yes.
more you can look at different systems, you'll find different solutions. And so
Yeah.
that's crucial. The more lenses you can borrow from other professions and other looks, then you may find stuff that one lens did not look at. So that's one thing that I think the more systems you have, more systems you can assess, then you're going to find all those things that start to fall through the cracks. You've heard the analogy of the jar, and they put the big stones in there. You heard that analogy?
I think so, but share it
So, if we
anyway.
have a problem and you want to fill this jar up, you put the big stones in first, right? That's
Right.
looking at the big problems first. Looking through the obvious things that happen. And then, okay, do you still have space? A jar full? No. Now put gravel in the jar.
Hmm.
Okay, you got space? Is it full? Yeah, it's pretty full, but there's still a problem. All right, let's put sand in there. Is it
Hmm.
full? Yeah, it's pretty full. Now put water on top of that, right? So the more systems you understand, the more views and tools that you have available to you, the more
Yeah.
you're going to get the stuff that fell through those cracks that you wouldn't get with just one system. So that's where I've always been a forever learner, a learn it all, not a know it all,
Yeah.
because those systems help me get parts of the jar that other people have
Yeah.
challenges with. So yeah,
Right.
that's it's really and that's the fun part. If it's a little chunk of sand that was launched here, like, oh man, that's your high five and you found it, right? And you
Yeah.
help them discover it, and that's it's a blast. So I enjoy that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what you're right. You're right. People show up with the symptom, and you are always looking for the origin. So
Right.
even just you're asking the questions gives you a clue of where else to look that maybe we haven't looked yet. So that's
And
so powerful.
not to make this a medical podcast, but movement is such a crucial part to look at how things to help solve problems. And they've
Yeah.
looked at, like, I guess AI can identify people by the way they move, their gait, the way they walk in crowds. So everyone's like a fingerprint. The way we move is unique to us, and so
Yeah.
that to lay on a table or just take a static X-ray and try to solve stuff. I mean, it seems you're missing so many parts of who that person is.
Yeah.
So
You did that
you
with
watch
me.
your spouse or kids or best friend the way they walk. You can see them from a mile away. You just see just these little, and they're not even hard to articulate, but there's just things you can pick up. So as a practitioner, watching things move and then looking at feeling how you move, and that's the crucial thing about doing something like Orange Theory or yoga or walking, because by moving you create context to see how
Mhm.
yourself is doing, and creating
Yeah.
context of your body environment is going to help you thrive and problem solve yourself, which is you can't win. I again, coming from an athlete, and we'll get into that later, but you're not going to win games on the sideline, on the bench. So if
Right.
it's things are stable and you're not going to hurt yourself, you need to stay moving to learn how to fix it.
Yeah.
That's crucial.
And now that you're saying that, you did that with me because I think I might have shown up with all my X-rays and my MRIs because I've had a million of them. And
Yeah,
you said I don't need to see any of them. And when you said that, I was like, okay, I'm not sure about this guy.
yeah,
But you did. You asked me to walk across the room. Is really
yeah.
where you started.
And
So
this is for musculoskeletal. If it's oncology or cardiology, right? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Look at those things.
yeah,
If you've had a car accident or something like that, then yeah, we want to look at those. But if it's something from 4 years ago and your knees hurting now, then it. There's the and you can count my isms and my analogies in this podcast. It's gonna be a great. But the person that walks through the river on one side is a completely different person that looks the other side, right? Or the person who gets on
yeah,
the subway is a different person when they get off the next stop. So for me, looking at X-ray 4 years ago to now, a lot of things have happened to your body. A lot of things have changed, both structurally and neurologically. So, yeah, I want to see who you are now, and that's kind of a joke around, but that's like being in the present moment as well. So
yeah,
it's not to chuck the ethical medical stuff aside, but really being present in the moment. And not it will sometimes also judge the way you look at someone. Oh,
right.
you're a knee replacement, or they said you have osteoarthritis, and so it taints our vision of looking at pure movement and watching another person functions. So
Yeah, and I mean, we're talking right now about something that seems very specific. We're talking about medical but this actually, if you think, I'm just thinking, like hearing what you're saying, and it applies to everything. So if you look at something that is a problem that's been around for a while, and you're trying to find the solution based on what it was 4 years ago, like you just said,
right.
you're right. There's so many things that have changed. So you have to look at what is happening right now in order to come up with the right solution for whatever it
Mhm.
is. It doesn't have to be medical that we're even talking about.
Yeah, there's an analogy of, and some of my favorite people to quote, Alan Watts, was, the University of Berkeley, right?
Uh huh.
The people who went to that school and the professors, the admin, are completely different now than they were 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
But it's still the University of Berkeley, still the
Yeah.
essence of the university. So you're Claire, but all the parts in you from 5 years ago are completely different in movement patterns now, right? And
Right.
so you have to, the essence of you is the same, but things have all changed through there. So it could be a great university, it could be a liberal, conservative. All these things could change within it. And the same thing with movement, same thing in any organization. So to make this more of kind of in a business world, like your employees from 15 years ago or your reputation from 15 years ago is completely different now.
Different.
So you have to look at what it is now. Don't get caught
Yeah.
in the past. And
Right.
that's one of the things you have to look at the now of what's presenting, because
Right.
that's what your customers are seeing. That's what your clients are seeing. That's what your practitioners are seeing, is who you are right now, how you're moving now. So,
Yeah.
and I'm happy to kind of bring this full circle again. I see these things as these patterns that overlap. So not only in a business world or a medical world, but there are patterns just how people function.
Yeah.
So
The last time I was there, I had asked you one of your favorite words, and you said curious, that being
yes,
curious,
yeah.
which is the cornerstone of a growth mindset, right? So, what is your philosophy behind growth, and where does that come from for you? Has it always been a part of who you are?
Yeah, I think I've probably always, if you talk to people who know me, I've always been curious. I have a hard time thinking inside the box, even in school. When I was taking SAT courses and stuff like that, I'm always incorporating different things, and it was a challenge for me to stay in the box and stay curious. My favorite saying, and I say it probably 30 times a week, is you're either green and growing or ripe and rotten. And I think that is an essence to live by. You're either moving towards something and developing, or you're starting to get stale. And I think that curiosity is drives that green and growing.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate; my parents gave me this environment where they allowed me to explore and be creative. And I've tried to do that. I have two daughters, and that's one of my things that I think creativity is going to be the capital or the essence of the future generation, because I think service tasks and those things are going to be automated. And so the purest form
Yeah.
of us as beings is as creativity, and I think that's and curiosity, and that's what drives us, right? So that's the things
Yeah.
I try to nurture and facilitate in my house. Artwork, different thoughts, different processes, and exposing different mindsets and encouraging questions. My father, mother, teachers, everyone really put up with my curiosity. And chiropractic school is alternative healthcare, right? So
Hmm.
it's somebody just kind of kept asking questions, and I kept asking questions beyond that. So,
Yeah.
right, well, what's this? How's the spine get around? That's arms and legs. Well, what moves those? Muscles. Okay, how those are controlled? Nervous system. What's that set up with? Through
Yeah.
patterns. Okay, and that's presented through movement. We can keep going down the rabbit hole, and that's I buckle up and enjoy the rabbit hole. It's a
Right.
blast, and
Right.
and and set time aside to be curious. So my favorite thing is my kids say I'm bored. I love it. My daughter, I'm bored. I'm like, awesome. Because when you're bored, you got time to think. You don't
Yeah.
spectate. You got
Yeah.
time to perplex and question. When you're just spectating and absorbing stuff, you're not creating.
Hmm.
You're in the stands. And I want to be on the field. So that's what I want to teach my kids to do.
Yeah. So tell us about your family. You have two
Uh,
daughters
two daughters. My oldest daughter is going to be 10, Alyssa.
already?
And yes, and she is just beautifully creative with music and dance and artwork and clay, and it just yeah, just makes my heart just glow.
Yeah.
And my youngest daughter is Tatiana. She's 7, and
Mhm.
she's equally creative and just a wonderful sense of humor. I mean, has
Yeah.
me just laughing stitches every time. So she likes to pull jokes and a little bit mischievous, but it's a lot of fun. So they're beautiful, and they're such different people, which blew my mind because you got the same ingredients, same environment, different
Right.
souls. And
Yeah.
then my wife Michelle is a nurse, and she's just tolerates my curiosity and tolerates my quirkiness, and I just have random stuff like I'm going to try hydrogen water, and she's like I don't know, but tell me about it later.
Yeah.
Look at this, and she's very tolerant of my curiosities and my randomness. So I'm grateful for that, and
Yeah.
amazing mother, amazing wife. So very lucky.
So are there things that you do? So I believe having growth mindset is a choice.
Yes.
So how have you fostered that so far in your girls?
Good question. Actually, speaking of that, they're just walking in. You guys are walking by. Perfect segue. So my wife, and there's Alyssa. Say hi, Alyssa. But how do I foster growth mindset? I think one of the things is letting them not be afraid to fail,
Uh-huh.
and being okay with their emotions.
Yeah.
I grew up in a tougher area, so you weren't supposed to show fear or anger
Mm.
or joy. Even it was very much a lot of suppression,
Uh-huh.
and maybe that's my interpretation of environment. That's just what I took away from it. So giving them that space to experience those feelings, and then but move on from them. So
Right.
you can have fear and you can fail. I'll even ask them what you fail at this week, and
I
ask
love
them
that.
what they did in that. So it's not something that has a stigma. You're not designed to be perfect. Our nervous system, the more you learn about developmental patterns,
Yeah.
we learn through failure, and so that's something that I try to have them okay with. And then um, that again, creating anytime they want artwork or books at their disposal, it's go ahead and create. And then
Yes.
movement's important for us too. Movement,
Yeah.
the cerebellum, back of your head, it's 10% of your brain mass, 50% of your neurons in there, and
Uh-huh.
that facilitates well-being, creativity, dealing with all these different things. So I want to feed that as well. That's your
Yes.
hamster wheel that gets everything moving. So that's why
Right.
movement's crucial into a growth mindset as well. Uh,
Yeah.
so that's something I create for them.
I
So I
love it.
think that the understanding of uh, negative self-talk as well, that's something that's important for us, is uh, is not having, we all have it, and it's okay to have it, but to not create a pattern with it, because we are what we repeat. And that's one of the things I say every week too. We are what we repeat.
Where
So
we yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so question. So why do you think you do what is it you do? Is there a legacy that you're building with the platform you have? You are constantly doing something new. I've definitely noticed that. There's always something.
So it's a lot of it will stem with. It's kind of funny. When I was a kid, I had asthma, really
Mm.
bad, and so I grew up in this town called Vallejo, Northern California. I
Hmm.
love it. It's also part of who I am. But it was positioned between three oil refineries, a nuclear sub base, big agriculture. So there was a lot of environmental toxins.
Uh-huh.
And so
Mm.
I couldn't breathe
Mm.
most of my childhood until about age 13,
Mm.
12 maybe.
Mhm.
And so movement was not something that I had available to me. I'd go have fun as a kid, get kind of goofy, and then feel like somebody was choking me out in jiu-jitsu. I would get, I'd have an asthma attack. And so always had an inhaler with me. I'd have, I'd have albuterol, all sorts of things. I couldn't just be a kid and relax and run around. So
Mm.
now you bring to somebody who had to earn, and I had to catch up on motor patterns. So I wasn't playing
Oh wow.
Pop Warner or soccer. I could play goalie, but I wasn't able to run and just be a kid
Yeah.
like like my friends. And so that wasn't something I had abundant access to. And so I've really cherished movement, and that's something
Mm.
now I can give out. And now, as somebody as a movement and manotherapy helps you feel better, and movement therapy helps you get better. But giving
Yes.
those two things back to people is a driving factor. Um,
Mm.
my town is also super diverse, so I grew up around all sorts of people and all
Mhm.
sorts of cultures. So I enjoy people. It was just something I celebrate cultures and people. And so I'm in a profession that I get to meet people like you, every profession, age group. So I'm like, for me, it's a joy because it's something that I get to kind of bathe in a diversity and abundance of different people to help them. So I love
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
then the last thing is I played football, and
Yes. I was gonna ask you about that.
that became it's something I grew into. I love baseball, but I kind of got bigger and bigger, and it's my DNA and my diet and my joy for lifting weights. I was like, okay, I'm
Huh.
good at this sport. And so I didn't play football till 10th grade, and ended up playing in college at a pretty high
Mm.
level.
Yeah.
And I was an offensive lineman. So people who don't know, football rules, it's those big guys that just shove people around, protect the fancy
Yeah.
quarterbacks, and you never get your name called unless you do something wrong. And so you
Right.
are just throwing your heart, soul, blood, sweat
Mm.
to make somebody else score a touchdown, and you take pride in it. And so for me, it's like that's what I do for a living. I get to take
Mhm.
all my efforts, I'm sacrificing my body, putting all this time, effort into different education, and watching you guys go run and do the touchdown dance, and
Oh,
it
that's
makes
so
my heart
beautiful.
glow. Do be able to do that. So to hear that you can go run again, or you referred me somebody said they needed a knee replacement, and it was maybe, but not this time, and so it got
Yeah.
them up and running, and watching them not lose momentum on their health journey, and then with them transform their inside and outside. That's one of my touchdowns.
Right.
For me, when somebody walks in with crutches and decimated from other injuries, and they walk out carrying it, that's my home
Yeah.
run. So
Yeah.
I wish doctors could do touchdown dances because I'd have like all time.
I love that.
Yeah, I'd be even a
I think
3
we
point
should
right
do that
there.
every time.
It'd be awesome. Yeah, so I'd love to be able to do a shuffle after every time you guys walk out. But that's kind of my why is empowering people, and that's again family value. But that's what got me when I was in the corporate America. I would hit third quarter profits and great sales stats. I
Yeah.
wasn't fulfilled. Didn't scratch the itch of empowering people, and that's why again passing things along. So one of my favorite quotes too is to understand is to perceive patterns.
Mm.
I love that quote. And so I dive into these things. I look at a pattern and I share that understanding with you guys and
Yeah.
help you understand it. And that's, I think, what you owe to people, going forward is if like Claire's sitting up, you lived your life, you've exposed to things, your education, your life experience,
Uh-huh.
you perceive things unique to you. And that's like, you have obligation to share those cool things that you've learned to help them
Yes.
and help people do better. So, yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Well, I'm gonna hit these rapid fire questions because I don't think it's gonna be very rapid because I want to hear about all these. You have like an awesome list in here. Um, I love it. Okay, so couple books that have been game changers for you.
uh, there's hokey old book by a guy named Og Mandino called Mission Success.
Uh-huh.
Have you heard of that before?
I don't think I've heard that one. There's
He
something
was
about
like almost like pre Brian Tracy, right after the what's that influence people, like that guy.
yeah.
I mean, it's an old book, probably 60s or 70s,
Yep.
but it was one of those stories with messages built into it about a World War II bomber. And so,
Okay.
and I'll share my favorite part of the book, not to give the book away,
I want to hear it
well,
because
but
yeah.
and because I use this part of the book in almost every one of my talks when I go out to conferences and stuff like that. There's a guy who was feeling pretty down and out about his finances at the time, right? He was wanting to date a woman and he didn't have much money and he kind of felt very poor, didn't like his clothes. So he said, if you were presented by a very like a billionaire, like a Jeff Bezos person, and they said, hey, I want to take your ability to see your eyes. How much would you sell that to me for? What's your price? And you can't say unlimited. You can't say I wouldn't sell. There's a market value on this, but you have to sell your ability to see. How much would you sell that for? And write that down. Take that pen and paper, just write down the amount. Is it 5 million, 10 million, 500,000, 20 million? Like what's your cost to see? And they said, okay, now how about your ability to hear? You can't hear music, you can't hear people call your name, can't hear kids play, can't hear just the wind blow. How much would you sell that for? Write that amount down. All right. How about your ability to taste? Well, people with COVID, but yeah, you can't taste, right? No more food. Everything is just nothing. And how about let's take our hands away? How much for your hands? I need your hands. How much you sell your hands? And how about your feet? All right. And so he'd go down a list, and then at the end, add those up. And that's your net worth. That's not your 401k. That's not your FICO score. That's not what your bank account is. That's what you're walking around with every day. That's how rich you are. And so as a health practitioner, I get to help you protect that and then sometimes optimize that. Right. And so that's a great duty. And so that's what it really kind of puts things in perspective when we get wrapped up chasing the rat around the rat race. So I love that. And that's called Mission Success. And there's multiple other components in that book I really liked. So
yeah, I'm gonna have to go find that one. I know I've read an Og Mandino book. I can't remember what it is right now, but
I read a couple of other ones, and that one was
clearly it's so powerful.
it was good. So the other one is more of a anatomy book, but it changed the way I look at systems. In a book called Anatomy Trains by Tom Myers. I took some coursework with him, and that just looked at how it's pretty cool. They look at if you Google image deep front line or superficial back line, it shows you how all our body's connected within the fascia. And so he brings up a concept called tensegrity, and that's also transferred over how I look at the body. It's kind of like he takes like something like this, right? Yeah. So you can see how this kind of opens and closes. Yeah. So tensegrity is the whole, everything's connected. Yes. So if I grab this, that's your knee, and I move this, it affects the whole transfer through the system. Yeah. And so when you come in and say, oh, my knee hurts, so I might look at over here and say, okay, that's going to affect how free up your knee. Or, hey, my jaw is killing me. Cool. Well, your hip down here is locked up, and this jaw is going to play a role with it different. So looking at these different systems, how they intertwine with other, and then wrap up how you feel about the system, how you perceive the system to move, the neurology of it, really, really cool. So that tensegrity model really helped me look at how there's different connections and look at connecting the dots versus looking at a part, looking at you as a knee or a shoulder, or a neck, or a back. So those are things I looked at.
I mean, that is something that allows you to, I don't like saying think outside the box. I really like saying like just blow up the box.
Right. Yeah. And look at the outside the box. The other side of the box is what built the box, right? There's all things of think outside the box. It's how do you get there, right? So those are the things I think like that too. Again, too many questions, but that's the whole joy behind it. That's what we're here for. So.
Well, I am still fascinated every time that I come in and I say, this is what hurts, and you don't ever start there. Yeah. And I know what you're doing, and it's still every time like, this is so cool. Every time.
Right. It is. Sometimes it feels like Harry Potter-ish, right? But it's not. And that's one of the things I'm always grateful for, the smarter people who share that, right? Paid it forward. So then you and I get to have this conversation about these things. So, and that's, that you're talking about legacy. Hopefully my idea is we articulate these patterns that I've perceived that are accumulation of other smart people and how they've intertwined together and present that forward. So that's really my long-term goal, is to be able to present that as well.
Yeah, because it is a concept, again, that goes across everything. I mean,
Yeah.
Even outside your body, the things that you do affects what I say to someone affects how they feel. Like all those things, it is all interconnected. So
Yeah. It's in. I say that all day, and it never gets old for me. How the interconnections add
yeah.
up, and I'll look at different journals or different things. It's so cool.
All right, you had a couple. Do you want to share a couple more of your favorite books?
Other books I like. I love any biography that inspires me. So
Mm.
I'll listen to like the River of Doubt about Teddy Roosevelt going down into the Amazon. There's a book called the Subtle Art of Not Giving an F. It's also a great book, and it talks about. I'm not sure you heard that one or seen it. It was a bestseller for a while.
Uh-huh.
It's a subtle art for not giving it, and has the Cubert. I'm aging myself for that, but hashtags. That's a little more up to date. But one of my favorite takeaways is life. You're always gonna have problems. You just want good problems, and so
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the things I like about that. That was my big takeaway from that book is you just you want good problems to solve, and there's joy in solving problems. So, and I think that's get away from the solution provider. I do like the solution thing better. So there's always solutions. You just want to find good solutions, not bad
Yeah.
solutions. And I think that's
Yeah.
even a better way to look at it. So, and then any book by Alan Watts, I'm a big fan as well. So
Yeah, you've said him multiple times. I don't actually know who he is because I've in podcasts too. So who is Alan Watts?
he is a British philosopher uh,
Okay.
back in the '70s. So I'm going,
Okay, he's
yeah,
not even new.
he's not new at all. Yeah, he's not alive. And being British, I think he had a few drinks while he was doing his philosophy, so he was
Uh-huh.
well lubricated psychologically. And so he would take concepts of Zen and Buddhism and Tao, which I'm not one of those, but the concept of how he looked at the world and the interconnected of the world
Yeah.
is just fascinates me. And so
Yeah.
and a lot of his lectures, they're about life and consciousness, but I see them transferred into what I do for a living and
Mm-hmm.
how to help people. And so I think it's pretty interesting watching that philosophy weave into treatment. For
Yeah.
example, one of his quotes, which I love in his lectures, he says, "The everyday ordinary consciousness leaves out more than it takes in."
Everyday.
And so that's pretty heavy to think about, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
everyday ordinary consciousness leaves in more than it takes in. Leaves out more than it takes in. So when you drove, if you drove to, ran an errand, like what were the first 6 cars that you drove by?
No idea.
And then
No.
what exactly? So, but you drove by them, you're aware, you didn't hit them,
Yeah.
right? And so there's all these things that we leave out that
Mm.
but we're also taking in, and
Mm-hmm.
so being mindful of these things is a pretty big eye opener. Same thing with movement. So when
Yeah.
you're sitting here, are you breathing through your nose or are you breathing through your mouth right now?
Don't
And
do that because then I'm not gonna know.
are you on the front of your glutes sitting down, or are you on the back of your glutes?
Mm.
Are your hamstrings touching? Are your feet off in the air? Are your toes in the air? Or are they off?
Mm.
Right? Are your hands? Are you gripping your fingernails or not? Where's your shoulder blades? Right. So these are components where he's talking about philosophy, but it helps mindfulness in the movement
Yeah.
and starting to bring people aware of what's going on with their body. So we process, I think it's a million bits of information per second, but we're consciously aware of 50, and that's from an
Mm-hmm.
old neurology book.
Yeah.
So helping people highlight these things is important. In the business matter, what are you missing?
Mm-hmm.
So what are you missing in your practices? What are you missing with your employees? What are you missing with your customers? Like what consciousness what are the missing parts that you're not aware? That if you were
Yeah.
real mindful, you might see. You might
Mm-hmm.
see the way they're responding to emails. You might see all these little nuances. And so into movement, that's one thing. Into life and into everyday practice, bringing that consciousness really enriches you. And guess what? When you're thinking about what your fingertips are doing right now, you're thinking about what your toes are doing. You're not worried about your bills that are due
No.
on the 29th. You're not worried about that when you slipped or fell in high school. So you're in the present
Mm-hmm.
moment, and that's
Yeah.
really the best place to be. Put your body on less stress, less cortisol. Unless someone's
Mm-hmm.
chasing you, then run. But otherwise, you don't need to be dumping cortisol, right? So,
Right.
so
Yeah.
it's a really cool thing to use that into movement. So yeah, that's why I
Cool.
refer him quite a bit.
Yes. Okay. All right. Podcasts. What are
Podcasts.
your favorite? Yep.
A day without laughter is a day wasted. So I listen to a lot of comedy podcasts. To be honest with you,
Uh-huh.
so I love that's my let my brain relax.
Yep.
But I also like comedians because they can't think inside the box too, right? They things that we see every day, they look at it differently, and we can laugh at that. I listen to There's a guy named Lex Friedman. He's got some pretty interesting uh, guests there. Don't always agree with it, but I'm okay with it. And like I said, it's a person creating it, so I don't need to agree with everything they do or their presentation or even their guests. But I appreciate the variety and exposure of different ideas. Uh, what else did I listen to? There's a chiropractor who's about 10 years past me called maybe 15, named Perry Nicholson,
Uh-huh.
and it's called Stop Chasing Pain.
Mhm.
And so I think like to think myself as having a foot pretty grounded on more Western standard approach, and my other foot's up here, kind of exploring. And
Yeah.
he's like up here, he's way out there. So
Okay.
that's one of the things. So he's got a lot of different health practitioners, different neurology. So I really enjoy kind of going down that rabbit hole
Yeah.
with his. So
Well,
uh,
it's good to listen to things that challenge your brain to think out, to continue to think past the box, right? That,
yes,
like you're saying, that you don't always agree with everything, but it is good to challenge what you're thinking for that, for all the reasons we've been saying. So, yeah.
yeah, I've gone down the rabbit hole and looked, and I've said that like 30 times, but I've gone in and looked at people who really critique what I do. I did that a
Hmm.
lot in 2020, 21. A lot of physios, a couple guys from the UK. That was hard to do. It was hard to just take my confirmation bias, hold it up front, and watch it get just
Yeah.
beaten and bludgeoned. But it made me a lot better understand what I do and why I do it. And
Yeah.
so it's not a pleasant thing, but sometimes the pleasant things are the most rewarding at the end of it. So, uh, I stood in the fire in essence, and I didn't get into any shouting matches. I don't believe in wasting energy,
Yeah.
but I'd take it and I'd get triggered, and I'd have to go there and dig into my research, try to validate my confirmation bias, and okay, and then but when I came out of there, I had a greater understanding of why I do what I do and how it works, and then I
Sure.
was a lot more confident practitioner, and I was a lot more effective at helping people. So
Yeah.
going into that firing range, intellectual firing range, or what I think I'm good at, and then putting
Hmm.
myself through that made me really good. Everyone should do that. If you can't, it takes courage to
Yeah.
walk into what you believe and let it get it shredded in front of you, and then walk out and you're going to hold that diamond. Got rid of all
Right.
the coal. So yeah, that pressure creates a diamond.
Well, I mean, I know that we are made up of our thoughts and beliefs, but that's not who I am. It's just what I'm thinking or believing in that moment. So
Hmm.
if I could walk into a conversation where someone is, if we're putting everything up on to look at, and
Yeah,
I can disconnect it from being me and just it is presenting it as these are my thoughts and ideas, like what do you think of them? I
yeah,
think that the people that can't do that are the ones that associate like you're attacking me, but they're not
yep.
really attacking you as a person.
Right. And if they do, that's where I go the Vallejo in me. It's a rough town, so I'll go.
What? Okay.
I'll go zero Vallejo on you real quick.
Yeah.
But you can attack my ideas, and I'm okay with that. If you attack me as a person, then we're gonna deal with that as a
Right.
person. But
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
I'm a lot more calm with that stuff now. My buddy always
Yeah.
says, "You don't scratch too far, just so he'll go Vallejo real quick on you." But
Yeah.
no, I agree, and then not doing uh, being able to watch your ideas stand on their own and not
Right.
feeling, and everyone's entitled to their own opinion. And again,
Yes.
your perception to understand is perceived patterns, right? So they perceive a different set of patterns, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's
I
what
mean,
it's
so this one is not necessarily that deep of a belief, but I mean, one that I remember recently. I don't remember why we started talking about AI, you and I,
uh-huh.
when I came in, but I remember telling you that I'm never going to use it because I feel like it's cheating,
Yeah,
and I think I feel comfortable telling you things that I don't believe because I know that if there's going to be a different perspective, you're going to give me a good one. And
yeah,
so, I mean, I've been using it now since I had that conversation with
awesome,
you.
awesome.
But
And if you didn't still, I wouldn't judge either. It's okay. So
yeah,
yeah, I mean that's you got to find out what holds water for you
yeah,
and what works for you in your world, and that's what I always sometimes people come in, I don't want to do this. Perfect, we won't do that.
right,
It got to be what works for you. So I think that's
yeah,
and being you don't need confirmation from me or an expert. Like it's got to come from you for sure.
yeah, right. But we're not always thinking about all the things. Like my limitation that I was saying is that I feel like it's cheating, and that statement you were able to just dissolve by saying, well, it's not, it's still going to be your thoughts. I'm not the kind of person that will ever cheat necessarily. I'm not going to let it do the work for me, but it will help enhance.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
It came from us. And that's where I have I differ sometimes not to go into this aspect of it, but a lot of my colleagues are very anti medicine,
Mm,
uh, anti procedures, any anti you put in your body. but I'm like, it came from us. Like
Mm,
if a beaver built a dam, it came from that beaver, right?
yeah.
And the wasp built a nest. And that's what we do. We alter molecules as a species.
Yeah.
You take your
Yeah.
supplement, you take your vitamin C. That came from us. Like
Right.
we alter
Calling
molecules
it.
and we alter electricity, right, with our thoughts. And now, we're talking over a computer right now. So like that's
Yeah.
what we do. It's not cheating. And you didn't drive and have this in front of me. It's no different.
Yeah.
So it's we have to be mindful with it and conscious use it for a good thing, but you don't want to cheat, right? So
Right.
but we can use it to enhance. And I think that's what we want to do. So
It's really good.
yeah,
Okay, favorite quotes. We've been quoting all throughout the
yeah.
podcast already, but you always say we are what we repeat.
Yeah, we are what we
Uh,
repeat.
uh-huh.
The other one I say is the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and second best time is now,
Is
right?
now, yep.
So,
That's a
so
good
I
one.
should have done this. Like, you're here now, do it, right? So I hear, should have seen you 7 weeks ago. Like, I'm happy you're here now. You're not saying that seven
Yeah.
weeks from now. So
Yeah.
that's another one. I love that quote. It takes a long time for the fruit to ripen, but the fall from the tree is sudden. I say that quite a bit. Like,
Ooh,
I
I
don't know
never
why
thought
my
about
shoulder hurts. Like, well, you've probably been doing something for about 3 months, and now you're feeling that,
that.
right?
That's so good.
I don't know
Yeah.
why my car fell apart. Well, you probably could have done something 3 weeks ago, and that probably been better. So
Yeah.
I think that's also, and that goes back to what we are, what we repeat. So
Yeah.
uh, yeah, those are some of my favorite quotes.
Awesome.
I can go on and
I
on for
know.
them.
I
So
love
yeah.
it.
Uh,
All right. What does progress look like for you personally this year? How will you know this was a great year for you?
so I do goal setting every year, and that's one thing that I learned with my goal setting. I've always been a goal setter. Is I rank my goals. So I'm not sure if you ever tried the strategy.
Rank them?
Yes. So
Okay.
I learned this from some clients of mine who do a goal setting every year up in Blue Sky Ranch, and they invited me, and I went, and it's found it very effective. So you break it up your life into a spiritual, material, and then blank on another one,
Physical?
physical. Yes. And
Only because
so
you wrote it down.
yes. So thank you. Old football player. So I've had a pretty good run so far. And anyways, what you do is at a certain point, you brainstorm what you want to do in those categories. So if it was
Okay.
physical, I would sit there, I'd put a timer on for 2 minutes and go and write down the most important things I want to do with physical.
Mm.
Right. And then I'd rank them from like 1 to 6, the top 6 that really jump out at me.
Uh-huh.
And then you rank them from each other. So would I rather take a walk or learn to paddleboard? Would I rather take a
Oh,
walk or wake up every morning and see the sun? Would I rather take a walk, or you go down and rank them from 6 and you circle which one you'd rather do.
okay.
And then you go so you go 1 to 6, then you go 2 to 6, then 3 to 6, and 4 to 6. Then you tally up. And then when you tally up, you see what your heart wants, not what your brain wants. And so it's a really good way to suss out what you think what you should do for a goal versus what you really
Oh,
want to do. It's a great technique.
wow. Okay, I've never
So
heard
I
that
figured
before.
I'd share that more important with you and your listeners versus what my goals are. But that's how I go
Okay.
through them. And so, but then what I do is I mind map them. So I'll have those 6 there, and then
Hmm.
I'll map up what I need to do to get there, and I'll
Uh-huh.
make a little bubble, and then what steps I need to do to get those. And so I have one piece of paper that I can look at 6 of my goals of all those areas, and then
Awesome.
Sunday night or the end of the month I can go around and see what kind of progress I've made. So I get an abundance of goals to hit in different aspects of my life
Hmm.
without having to just zero in on one thing. So, and they're mine. They're not this what I think I should do.
Right.
So,
Ooh, that's so good.
other thing I learned
Okay.
just yesterday that I thought I'd
Yeah.
share with you because I was like, this is perfect timing. And one of my clients shared with me, so I'm thanking them. She tracks how many new things she learned a month.
Ooh, I like that.
And I was like, that is phenomenal.
How
That
many
was
new
like,
things?
that's singing to my heart right there. So
Yeah.
yeah, she's like, I learned 33 things last month. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. So
Oh, that's
yeah,
cool. I'm definitely doing that.
yeah. So that's going to be part of my things I track too. So I can't wait to look
That's
at what I learned in a year, new stuff. So
yes, absolutely. There's sometimes I have found that if I don't track something,
hmm
if I refuse to track it, it usually means I don't actually want it.
yeah,
I'm not really going to do it if I'm not going to
agreed,
track
agreed. Yep.
it. Because if I track it, I know I'm going to want to do it.
hmm
If I want to do it, I'm going to track it because I want
Yep.
to know that I won.
Yep.
So, yeah,
That's 100%. Well, it keeps you that focus on it for sure,
yes,
and when you're
yeah,
slipping versus like, oh man, I went too far out now. So yeah.
yep, absolutely. All right, what is one quality that you love about yourself?
I kind of the theme of it is I love being curious and I love to laugh. Those are the two things I enjoy. I enjoy people too. So those things I feel lucky. Some shirts say, no, it's too peoply here. I actually enjoy folks. I love learning from people.
Yeah.
So I love nothing excites me more when you talk to somebody who's really vastly knowledgeable about something I know nothing about, and I
Yeah.
just get to soak up that knowledge. Like I'm a skydiver, right? I build nuclear this and that, and it's just like, oh, tell me how that works. That's so cool.
Yeah.
I jump horses. Like, all right, well, how's that even start, right?
Right.
So, is there a name,
That's
or do you
cool.
kick it, or what do you do? Like, I love learning about. So I guess it's just feeding that curiosity is something I love about myself. Yeah,
Yeah. You're like
and
a
I
primitive
and and,
2-year-old.
and I like to laugh. That's the other thing. So yeah,
Both
my
those
dad always
things.
says if somebody doesn't smile within the first 3-4 minutes, you probably don't want them in your life of interacting. And I think it's a good litmus test. So.
Yeah. Well, I love both those qualities about you. It's definitely one of the reasons I love coming in
Well,
to see you, because I always look forward to being there. So,
Well,
yeah.
you always motivate me to keep you moving. So that's a great thing. So I love seeing your adventures and your journeys and hearing
Yeah.
about your world travels. So that's something I love. And I was kind of thinking about when I was talking about this, this thing right here. I was
Yeah.
thinking like, well, talking about some of your event stuff, like people just see the athletes on the court or the field,
On the field. Yeah.
and they don't. So they see like this right here, but they don't see all the stuff where they slept, how
Everything.
they got there, what bus ride was there, what arrangements, how they ate. Like they don't see any of the stuff goes on behind it. And if this, if they don't get fed right, or if they can't get there right, this whole thing doesn't work right, right? So you just see these little things are huge things on the outside. So that looking at those systems are
Yeah.
such a cool aspect that we just see that how it presents on the outside, but there's so much within
That
these
goes into
systems,
it.
to learn about and understand.
I love it. Well, thank you for that. Well, so this podcast, our audience, it's intended for the people who want to amplify their lives. So we want people to be living out loud and on purpose. So if that is their intention, what would be a question that you would have them ask themselves?
Well, we said it once, said it twice. Like, are you green or growing, or are you ripe and rotten? Right?
Yeah.
Where are you? And one of the things I like to is if you're going to tread water, tread in a direction. So if you're lost, you're one of those people like, where's my motivation? I don't know what I want to do. Like
Yeah.
find something that interests you and go towards that until you bump and bobble into where you should be. And that's kind of what I did. And you continue to pursue what interests you,
Yeah.
and be mindful and dive all into it and keep asking questions, keep staying curious.
I love it. And what can we do to amplify your voice? I know you have a lot of stuff that you've been working on. Is there anything we can
Yes,
do?
I have everything on
Yeah.
the table. So the meal's about to come out. So the analogy again, but I have a blog I've been working on at drtoddp.com. So
Uh-huh.
Dr. DOC. Don't know my spelling there. Beautiful, beautiful. So Doctor spelled out Todd, and the last name is P as in Plutchok. So drtoddp.com. So
Okay.
and so on the blog, I have a lot of these concepts we talked about there. I'm going to be very active in social media. So some of these we have my blog will be extrapolated into social media, a YouTube channel for some exercises,
Okay.
and then I have actually some device I'm coming out with, and a mobility store with some educational things. So it's actually all in the wrapper right now, ready to be displayed. So that
Yes.
is also what's my year going to look like. Is it's going to have off the sidelines and present my creations. So thank you for asking. And now that we've put this on podcast, it's a little bit more pressure for me to
No
put it on the
pressure.
shelves.
Yep.
So
It
thank
has
you
to
for
be
that.
reality. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll put everything in the comments below as well so that you guys can find it there. So,
Well,
well, thank you for your time today. I
thank
so
you.
appreciate you. And then
Appreciate you
if you
too.
are,
Thank you. Enjoyed it. I
yeah,
really enjoyed our talk as I always do.
me too. And if you are tuning in today, I just want you to remember that no matter where you are in your journey, you are already enough. There's more to you than you can even imagine. There's more. There's more in you than you even realize, and there's more for you out there just waiting to be received. So have the courage to take the very first step and amplify your life, one day at a time, one thought at a time.